PGA Nation, we are back and we are heading to Florida. The formerly known as Honda Classic, now the Cognizant is back. We are on the Florida swing and we are back into the swing of things for the 2025 season. Audience, congratulations. Great draft last week. You guys took it down. I was complimenting you early last week on your speed to draft. Not only did you guys have great speed, you also won the draft. All around, great job from Teen Audience. You are the engine that makes this show run. We appreciate you. Good job. You guys are responsible for the order tonight. The first person to put a draft order in the chat tonight, that will be the order we go with. It's a three-man draft tonight. Spence couldn't make it. It's just going to be myself, David, and you all. So give us a three-man order. That's what we're going to run with. David, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Listening to your intro, I was just thinking, when was the first time that you realized that Flow Rider's name was Florida? Like, it took me like an unreasonable length of time to realize that Flow Rider also just spelled Florida.
It's funny because when you first do realize, it was years ago. I was probably in college when I figured it out. But when you first make that realization, it's a mind-blown moment. It's like, whoa. That is, I just figured that out. The Flow Rider is Florida. Yeah, I get it. When you finally figure that out, that definitely that one hit you hard.
It took me an unreasonable amount of time. I'll admit that. I'm awesome, mate. Look, 2 weeks ago at the Genesis Invitational, we gave out our top pick was Ludvig Aberg. Obviously, hit that 22-1 at Torrey Pines. Thank you very much. And then last week on the DP Tour, we had an absolutely mammoth week. So get this: not only at the Kenya Open, not only did we hit the winner, which was Jacques Kruyswijk. Jacques Kruyswijk at 66-1, but we had 4 golfers in the top 7 within our selection. So not only did we have first, we had third, we had fourth, we had 7th. It was our most profitable week of the last 2 years. Over 140 units cleared in one tournament, because not only did we hit the winner, the guy who was in third was 110-1, so we got like 22-1 on him finishing top 8. Jaden Shaper in third, Adrian Sadia in 7th, and then we also had the guy in 20th, so we got top 20. It was just an absolutely massive week. So that's the benefit, man, is you're not only getting PGA Tour, but you're getting all the DP World Tour picks and back-to-back winners. Can't complain about that.
Cannot complain. And it is important to ride the hot streak. We're hitting on a high clip right now. We're seeing things well, and we have another draft tonight to break it down, which should be a fun tournament. Now, it's a little bit of a watered down field. There's a couple big names at the top, but I think we've seen in a lot of weeks this can be an interesting way where you can find an edge. With Spencer gone, David, we're going to lean on you for a course breakdown. What are you looking for this week at PGA National?
Yeah, look, this is a staple of the PGA Tour. It has been for a number of years. I love PGA National. I think it's a fantastic golf course. Obviously, the Bear Trap's iconic. 3 of the toughest hole stretches that you'll find on the PGA Tour all season, and obviously gets marked with a great name as well, which is always extremely helpful too. Look, it is an interesting golf course. We've seen it play a little bit easier the last couple of years, which for me is a real shame, because I've really actually enjoyed the fact that this has been one of the tougher tour spots. Like, you can win at like -12, -13. Started seeing that score like creep down lower a little bit as of late. So hopefully that isn't like the way that this trend continues for all of time. Hopefully it stays a bit tougher, because I do really like that aspect of the golf course. Obviously, you've got a ton of water in play. You've got all that swampland kind of areas. So there's 15 holes with water in play. One other thing I thought was really notable was that your approach from 150 to 200 yard, a pretty narrow approach range, gets a huge increase in terms of the number of shots within that range. You get 9 shots on average from 150 to 200 yards. So 50% of your approach shots are going to be within that range. And then when you consider things like par 5s, obviously you're not often going to have an approach between 150 to 200 yards, because if you're going for the green at 2, you're going to generally have an approach over 200 yards in those examples. That really just narrows down the key ball striking metrics that I'm looking for within that particular spectrum. Accuracy outweighs distance. Having both is a real asset. We're seeing a number of strong drivers find real success around PGA National. The other thing I want to talk about is a little golf course in Scotland of all places, that has insane correlation when it comes to PGA National. You followers of Deep Dive Golf and Win Daily on Twitter and in our premium Discord will know that we made absolute bank at the Open Championship last year. We made a ton of money, and part of that was really uncoupling the link between PGA National and Royal Troon, which was the host of the Open Championship last year. Now, on paper, you might be thinking, what is a tropical course in Florida got to do with a cold and wet, windy, wild Scotland on the other side of the world, typical links golf? Well, one, you get a number of the approach shots within that same metric, which is really key. I think the thing is with PGA National, it kind of asks similar questions to Open Championship. It is often quite windy in Florida. The other aspect is if you go too far off the tee, you're going to find water. And in links golf, if you go too far wild off the tee, you end up in like thick tussock grass, and it's basically the same as being in a water hazard because you're going to lose a stroke trying to get your ball out or taking an unplayable lie. So it's kind of similar in that regard. And I'm just going to read a few names here just to really illustrate the absurdness of this correlation. So take Xander Schauffele out of the picture, who won the Open. He's only played PGA National once, so it's not really a fair example. The 3 previous Opens held at Royal Troon were all won by players who had won at PGA National before. So Justin Leonard and Malk Calcavecchia had both won at PGA National before winning the Open at Royal Troon. Then the other one was Todd Hamilton. Now, Todd Hamilton was like 500 to 1 to win the Open Championship. It was one of the biggest upsets in major championship history. He only won at one other tournament in his PGA Tour career over all of his years of playing. And it was the Open, and it was the PGA National at what was formerly known as the Honda Classic. Then you go back through the leaderboard of the Open last year. So other than Xander, as I said, who finished first, he's only played PGA National once. Justin Rose finished second. He has 3 top 5s at PGA National. Billy Horschel finished second. 5 of his last 8 starts at PGA National were 16th or better and included 3 top 10s. Russell Henley finished 5th. We were on him that week at the Open up 110 to 1. He finished 5th for us. He won at PGA National and has had 5 top 20s here. Shane Lowry finished 6th. He probably should have won the Open. He was leading by a massive amount until he absolutely collapsed on the back 9 on Saturday. He has 4 top 9s at PGA National, including his last 3 starts here being top 5s. Sungjae Im finished 7th, not a typical links golf specialist. Sungjae Im doesn't play a lot of links golf. He has also won at PGA National. And then Adam Scott, who finished 10th, has won at PGA National and has 5 of his last 6 starts at PGA National being 14th or better. So I think that really just illustrates how absurd the correlation is between Royal Troon and PGA National. And it is one that has really shaped my selections going into this week.
Boom. That is the type of insights you get from tuning in here. There is correlation. There is course history that can benefit your picks. That's what we're going to get into in the draft tonight. Zach, we appreciate you. The draft order is in. I will be going first. Audience second. Dave, you'll be going third. So audience, you're going to get a pick in the middle. That means you guys are going to have to be on your toes. Zach, I'm holding you as audience captain responsible to ensure that the picks get in on time. If it is slowed down, Zach, we're going to rely on you to move things along. If you're new to the show tonight, as a quick reminder, the way it works like a typical snake-style fantasy football draft. We go 1 through 3. David's going to pick twice there at the turn, and then we'll go back. The one caveat here with our draft is you do need to stay within a DraftKings salary. So you can't just take all the best players. You do need to make sure you can actually afford your lineup in a real DraftKings tournament. If you're watching along, log into YouTube. On YouTube is where you can draft along with the audience. So the way the audience picks works is everyone can nominate a player. Once a player is nominated, it needs to be seconded. So when that player is mentioned a second time in the chat after nomination, that is when it officially becomes the audience's pick. And then we move on to the next pick. All right. With me first on the board, there's for me this week, there's 3 players that are coming like the big 3. I would have been happy with any of them. I don't think that this player would have gone first if I didn't have the first pick, but I'm not risking it getting back to me. Again, this is my guy, and this is something I must have said 25 times, at least, over the last 2 years. Get him now before the price goes up because he's a better golfer than he's getting. I think he was priced at what? Was he under 7K last week? If he was at 7K, it was right at the bottom 7K. And we kept saying that, and now here we are. 9,900. Daniel Berger is back at the top, playing great. This is a really good course fit for him. Not only is it a really good course fit, he's not overly long. He's going to hit fairways. He has a good course history here. He's gotten good results. And for those of you that don't know this, his dad is the tennis pro at the community just a mile down the road. He knows this course well. His family is in this area. He plays here all the time. I love Daniel Berger to get a great result this week. I already put a pretty big bet on him to get a top 20 as a safe pick, but I think he has plenty of upside as well. All right, audience, way to lock it in. Great start to the draft tonight. Russell Henley totally makes sense. I would have taken him first as well if I didn't have the first pick. Henley is a guy I definitely am interested in getting in my lineups. As David mentioned earlier, there's a great correlation with him in this golf course at 10-7. You can still afford pretty much any lineup you want with getting him in there. So audience, great job there. David, I'd love to go to you. I'd love to get your take on both Daniel Berger and Russell Henley, and then you're up with your first two picks.
Yeah, I knew as soon as you were speaking that Daniel Berger was going to be your selection, hence why he popped up so quickly there. No real surprise from Joel. Now, remind me, Joel, you have some sort of familial relation to Daniel Berger, and you had a great story about, I think your mum, lived next to Rory McIlroy in Florida and, didn't even know who he was.
Well, no, that was it. I was saying it before, so you got it. My parents live in Florida, and so, in Florida, they have all these... Sorry, mom and dad, if you're listening. They're old people communities. So it's where old people live, and there's all these houses. So the one next to theirs is PGA National, and so my parents' community, Daniel Berger's dad is the tennis pro. So he lives 1 mile from PGA National in that community. And, that's why I'm saying Daniel Berger is very familiar with this course. His family lives right next to it. He plays there all the time. It almost feels like a home course advantage. But, yeah, that is the connection. They live right next to it in that same area.
Yeah, I'm sure that you had a great story about Rory McIlroy as well, related to that of your mum bought a house or something, and it was there's some golfer who lives next door, and it was a Rory McIlroy. Which
I don't know about that one, but that sounds better than the story I told.
Okay, maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it's someone else I was speaking with. Somebody who lived in Florida, and they bought a house, and they're like, "Oh, some golfers moved in next door. You might know him." What's his name? Oh, his name's Rory.
Rory Sabatini. That probably makes more sense.
McIlroy, the goat. Yeah, look, I do like Berger this week. Look, I mean, we have to take into account, I probably should mention this in the course analysis, that we're moving on to Bermuda grass, much stronger grass type putting wise for Daniel Berger. Obviously, he really excels when he gets onto the surface. He's got a great history as this event, and he looks healthy, and he's playing really well. So, kind of no surprise. It's going to be really interesting to see what his ownership comes in at Zach, as Zach kind of alluded to. I mean, I'm currently getting at about 24% at the moment for Daniel Berger at 9,900, third highest priced golfer. So, there is that factor, but look, I think he's a fine selection. He's gonna go play well, in my opinion, and I think he's good value in terms of the particular output that you can expect on this track. And same with Russell Henley. I really liked Henley. I wanted to take him with one of my first two selections. Really accurate golfer. The approach metrics are just off the charts, and he's got a fantastic history at this golf course. And as I said, not necessarily a links golf specialist, but played really well at Royal Troon, which has just got this insane correlation when it comes to the links here. Excuse the pun, the links with PGA National. So that put pay to my plans a little bit. I knew one of the guys that I really wanted to take when it came down to this selection here, and that was going to be Billy Horschel, if I can spell his name correctly. That would help. Billy Horschel, look, I think that he is in a lot better form than people are perhaps giving him credit for. He had 2 missed cuts prior to this event. However, Genesis Invitational, I think that's really a little bit too long for him at Torrey Pines. Never had a great level of success at Phoenix Open either. So I'd rather go back to before that, when at the signature event, Pebble Beach, he finished 9th and was just off the chart on approach. And those approach metrics have kind of stuck around. Other than the fact that the putter basically led him down at Torrey Pines and Phoenix Open. As I said, we're moving to Bermuda. Billy Horschel is a Florida native, and he has never won in the state of Florida. It is something that he is desperate to do within his career. He has said so on record a number of times. He's got some great results here. He was second last year at Roll Turn as well. So very, very happy to take Billy Horschel with my first selection. I think he is drastically underpriced at 7,900. Yes, he's going to be chalky. He's probably going to be about 16 or 17%. However, I think that's just a fact that he is criminally undervalued here and should be more in the 8K range given his credentials on this golf course. I am now going to go and back that up with links golf specialist. As we know, the Open has really good links with this golf course. And I'm going to go and take Shane Lowry here with my next selection. So Shane Lowry, obviously excellent form at this golf course. 3 consecutive top 5s here. Got no complaints whatsoever with his form. Again, I'm going to look at his recent performances with a grain of salt. I would say finishing 39th at the Genesis Invitational. Again, Torrey Pines, I think a little bit too long for a player like Shane Lowry. Again, I'll look at the start before that at Pebble Beach, a course that is much more correlated in terms of what it demands to PGA National. In fact, he's coming off that. His ball striking has been absolutely elite as of late, and he's arrived at a golf course he's played really, really well over the years.
Boom. All right. If you haven't caught it already, my big 3 was Henley, Berger, and Lowry. They're off the board early, as to be expected this week. I'm going to have as much exposure to those guys as I can. I really like the Billy Horschel pick here. I expected Billy Horschel to get drafted. I didn't think he would go in the first round. I think David, has a really good point. I think he's a good value. Might be a little chalky at the end of the day, but I think he's someone who's underpriced this week and certainly possesses a lot of upside. Audience, another great job getting the pick in on time. Another pick I like a lot. Great value in this field in Brian Harman. I think you get 2 guys here with between Billy Horschel and Brian Harman who are probably underpriced for their talent in this field. Both possessing a lot of upside. I think those are 2 very savvy picks, especially in tournaments if you're looking to try and get a lineup that has upside and trying to balance that. Now, obviously, you're going to have to get different with ownership, but Harman's another guy I will definitely be very interested in this week. How about you, David? Are you interested in Brian Harman?
Yeah, look, he's shown a little bit more lately on golf courses that I would say that probably don't suit Harman's game all that well. We know he's not the longest off the tee. We know he's more accurate than he is long when it comes to drivers. So 17th at the Genesis was probably a lot better than it looked for a golf course that's way too big for a guy like Brian Harman for that 25th at the Phoenix Open. I guess my only concern with that comes that he's never really played all that well here. He's at 11th and 12th in about 12 appearances here. So just 2 kind of finishes sort of, that would be reasonable for the sort of output you'd want in order to go get a takedown. He also didn't play all that well at Royal Troon when defending the Open. He finished 60th. So I wonder if the audience have maybe just taken Brian Harman because of the iconic win at the Open more than anything else. So we'll see how he goes. I think that you can definitely have some exposure to him. He does possess upside if he can get his putter rolling. We know that he can go and dominate tournaments. We know that he can do that. At 7,700, he's only 8% owned, which is fairly low. So you are getting that bit of leverage as a result. And that's probably just down to the fact that his course history here isn't the greatest.
All right. There you have it. All right. I got 2 here, and I'm not going to listen. I'm a simple man. I like my ways. I like to stick to my ways. I'm not going to make the mistake I made 2 weeks ago again and not draft Andrew Novak. I draft Andrew Novak in like 90% of our drafts. I'm going back to Andrew Novak. And in all seriousness, on Novak, I thought he could have been in the high 8K range. I still think he's underpriced here, especially as we get into these tournaments with what we call a JV or watered down fields. They're not really adjusting his price. As we stand right now, I think Andrew Novak is one of the top 20 players on tour. I mean, he plays in more tournaments than everyone, which is a big factor in that. But this is one of those tournaments that I'm talking about where you're not getting a full field. And this is the tournaments where he usually will show up and get you a really good result. So at 8K, I'm happy to go with Andrew Novak. And what I find to be a little bit odd is I'm only seeing about 13% ownership, which is, to me, is average. I mean, normal. I thought it would have been higher by the way he's been playing. So I have no problem going there with with Novak here with my second pick. And then I'm going to take with my third Lee Hodges. Lee Hodges is another guy who's just been playing really well at 7,400. His ownership will probably be similar, which at that price is a little bit higher. But he has a combination of someone who should do pretty well in the proximity distances on this course. He has a top 10 and a top 15 already playing here. He's also missed the cut once. But if you look into the numbers a little bit deeper, we were really high on Hodges to start the year in January. He's playing really well, making putts. His ball striking has been good. He had 2 results, a 33rd, which isn't really that bad. It's just not great, and a 57th at the Waste Management. It seems like people are maybe getting off him, but I don't think that you should be. I think Lee Hodges is still someone that has a lot of upside. Did Hodges already withdraw? Is that what happened?
Joel, this is a beautiful moment in PGA Draftcast history.
True
to form.
Thank you.
At least he hasn't started the tournament yet, but about 20 minutes ago, Lee Hodges withdrew from the tournament. So I just wanted to let you keep rambling because I was just enjoying it so much.
Well, maybe my luck is turning. If I'm getting out ahead of it before he actually withdrew, I haven't had a bad one yet this year. I don't want to knock on wood. I don't want to jinx anything. Listen, the pick hasn't been put in yet. I'm already allowed to pivot and fix it. I think things are looking up here. I'm optimistic about this. We're flipping this right back on his script, and we're going back to another one of – am I going to do that? Yeah, I'm going to change my pick here, and we're going to go with – yeah, I can do it. Sepp Straka. Listen, I think he's just one of the more talented golfers in this field. The proximity numbers should really suit him. He's won this tournament before, so we know that it should suit him. And if you look at form, he was a disaster at the Genesis. He lost almost 5 strokes on approach. But before that, he was on a tear. So we can just forgive him at the Genesis one bad week. Before that, his form has been lights out. I think if you remove the Genesis from the equation, he's probably in the 10K range or right up there with Berger. So I'm going to look past that one mistake, that one poor week. I think we get another great result out of Straka at what should be one of the elite talents in this field.
All right, audience. I love our audience. Audience is just hilarious.
Audience, you are
great.
We get
a 5-minute breakdown on Lee Hodges. Ed, let him have their pick. Let's get our pick in fast now. Absolute fantastic banter. And congrats, Joel, on getting the WD out of the way before not even the tournaments even started. Like before the drafts, even halfway through, you already got the WD in the books, which is fantastic.
I had to catch up. I couldn't go this long into the tournament without it. I see it mentioned in the chat. If you've ever seen the movie Draft Day, and he starts the day, he writes on a little card, Lee Hodges, no matter what. That was my day today. I wrote that. It didn't matter what was going to happen after that. I had to have Lee Hodges. That's how I started. It was my draft day moment. But Sia, welcome to the chat. Thanks for having you. Audience, we need to get that pick in. We're getting close. There's a few nominations in. We need one more to final. While we wait, David, are you interested in Straka or Novak this week?
So Andrew Novak has been playing fabulous golf, as you mentioned. He's another one of these who we should probably pay attention when he finishes 13th at Torrey Pines because he's really not that long off the tee, and that is a huge golf course for someone like Novak. So that's a very impressive result. Continual improvement here at PGA National in his attempts. So 2023 finished 29th, and then last year he finished 9th. So he's showing continual improvement, and he's in even better form now than he was then. So I think he's an absolutely fine play. And then Sepp Straka is another one that links Royal Troon really nicely. I mean, he finished 22nd at the Open last year at Royal Troon. And again, he's not necessarily a links specialist by any means. And again, he's shown great form in PGA National. He's a winner here previously back in 2022, and then the year after 2023 when he's defending, he finished 5th. So another great option to consider there.
All right, there you have it. Audience locked in is Ryan Gerard. Looked good last week. Going back to him this week, I think at 7,300, he could be a good value pick there. David, you got 2 in a row here. We'd love to get your take on Gerard, and then who are you going with your next 2 picks?
I do really like Ryan Gerard this week. He, much like those who have been taken before, he's playing great golf. Finished 15th at Genesis, 17th at Mexico Open leading up. He's played here once. He finished 4th. I believe that he's had some amateur experience here as well, just picking off the top of my brain. So that could also be of benefit if he has had other experience at this golf course. He is going to be quite chalky. He's 10% for someone who's 7,300. So that is just something to keep a bit of an eye on, because if it does start creeping up above, say, 12, 13, 14, he may become a candidate where you want to consider fading just on the benefit of trying to get leverage and hoping that then Ryan Gerard doesn't go out and play spectacularly well and you've suddenly got other options around him to consider. So that's my take on that. I'm going to have to pivot a little bit off my build, as I mentioned previously, just because I really did want to get Russell Henley within my lead up to this event. So I actually think I'm going to go and grab a bit of value here with a couple of other guys who play very well at Royal Troon and have history here as well, and then can still make some decisions down the way of how I want to construct the rest of this lineup. So going to start by taking Mackenzie Hughes at 7,200. On the face of it, Mackenzie Hughes might not look in the greatest of form. He has multiple kind of middling finishes without necessarily hitting the absolute peaks of his powers. But again, drawing on that link to Royal Troon, he finished 16th and was really not showing up at any Open Championships prior to that, and he was also second here in 2020. So I think he's a really interesting option in that low 7,200 range, and kind of a natural pivot from guys like Kevin Roy, for example, or Ryan Gerard, who the audience just took. If you're looking for someone who's like 2% owned, who has potential to absolutely pop off, Mackenzie Hughes at the moment in that range is one of the names that I will be looking to pivot onto. Then I'm going to go and spend up a little bit of my salary, hoping that the other guys that I want will come back to me in that regard. And I'm going to go and take Denny McCarthy, who is 9,300, just below Sepp Striker. I think because of that, you're getting a massive discount in ownership. He's only 13% owned, but in his last couple of events, he was 16th at the Phoenix Open in a full field event, and then 5th at the Genesis Invitational in a much stronger field than this one is here. In terms of his approach metrics, he is really good within that 150 to 200 yard range, which I find is really key to success when it comes to PGA National. He's also had a third here previously, and I think he's coming in with much better form than he has in other previous years. So happy to take a risk on Denny McCarthy popping off at 9,300.
Boom. I like Denny McCarthy. I think he's a sneaky pick. I think he has a lot of upside in this field. Audience, we need to get your pick in and finalized here for your fourth. You have plenty of money to spend. You actually have the most to spend of anyone as we finalize that pick. David, I'll go back to you. Is there anyone in this field that you are surprised by? Maybe he could be. I would assume it's an overpricing. That's really the question. But if you see someone that's a major underpricing that you would highlight while we wait for the audience's pick.
Looks like the audience have just got in. I mean, I obviously won't tell you who I think is massively overpriced until the end of the draft, because otherwise I'll be giving away all my state secrets, which I'll keep locked up in the hopes of picking up some value a little bit later. But in terms of guys who are overpriced, I mean, like maybe Keith Mitchell, Taylor Pendrith. Taylor Pendrith particularly, I think he's been playing great, but he's never really shown up at PGA National before, so it might be a bit of a surprise if he suddenly finds form there. Keith Mitchell's been playing a lot better recently, I do give him that, but prior to that, he was in a real slump, so you're kind of banking on him having turned it around at that kind of price, and the ownership kind of reflects both of those players at the top, being perhaps a little bit overvalued in terms of their low ownership numbers that you're getting as a result.
Yep, boom. I love it. I was upset because I wanted Højgaard here, and the audience snagged him. So that's a steal for the audience. Another great pick. I like the start to this audience stretch. I think you guys have a really good looking roster. Great pick by the audience. I like him. Dave, I'd love to get your take. Are you on Højgaard this week?
I'm not. I don't think this is actually really a good spot for him, to be honest. He's pretty inaccurate off the tee because of his like immense driving distance, which is a real asset in most places. PGA National, you kind of don't need it because it's a pretty short golf course overall. And so you don't really need the sort of super driving distance that Nicolai Højgaard possesses. So you're taking one of his biggest strengths away. And then given the fact he's pretty inaccurate off the tee, you're running the risk of lots of water balls and penalties that come with that as well. He's played here once. He missed the cut back in 2022. And then at the Open, he finished 66. So pretty average result of off train as well. So probably avoid, especially for me at the ownership that I'm getting him at is 12% at the moment, which is more than likely just coming off the fact that he finished 8th last week.
Right, there you have it. All right, I'm going to go out here. I have my 2 picks locked in. I'm going to start with a guy that's really just, I'm leaning into form here. And I'm going to take Patrick Rodgers. Listen, we've seen him give you 2 really good weeks in a row. Even last week, I mean, he gave you a 25th in that field. Maybe you can say that's not great, but if you look closer, he gained 4.5 strokes off the tee and 4.5 strokes on approach. He lost 2.5 strokes putting. Now, he's not the greatest putter ever, but he's typically not a terrible putter. I mean, he's had a few weeks early this year, where he's really lost his putter. But I would consider him a more plus putter than not. And if you look at just even the week before at the Genesis, he gained 5.5 strokes putting. If you can go plus putting, doesn't have to be great with the way he's striking the ball. I think you get another great result at only 8,200. So I'm going to lean into the form we're seeing here with Patrick Rodgers. And I'm also going to pair him with another one of my guys, a guy I'm always drafting, and that's Sam Ryder. Sam Ryder, we've seen go on spurts with a really hot putter. He has that right now. He is making putts left and right. He also had a stretch where he was really striking the ball well. He lost a stroke in Mexico, but before then, he gained strokes on approach every week since the RSM Classic. So that's 5 tournaments in a row. I think he can find some positive there. I think the big concern with Ryder here is his driver. That's clearly his weakness. He doesn't have a good handle on the driver. If he can straighten that out at all, which with a shorter course this week, he might be able to club down a little bit, I think you get a really good result from Sam Ryder. So I like the upside there. Audience, great job getting the pick in. Ben Griffin, 8,500. I think it's another solid pick in this field in the 8K range. I think he is just as talented as some of the guys closer to the low 9K range. So I think you're getting some value there. David, I'd love to hear from you. Are you interested in Ben Griffin? And then you got your last 2.
First off, I want to give you big ups on your 2 selections, because I think both Patrick Rodgers and Sam Ryder are really interesting prospects this week. As I said at the top of the show with the course analysis, ideally you want to be accurate off the tee at PGA National, but even better, you want to be accurate off the tee and long. And that kind of is the recipe that Patrick Rodgers brings. He has been gaining multiple strokes off the tee at every tournament, and he's doing it in the right way because he's gaining with driving distance and accuracy at the moment, which is a really deadly recipe when it comes to PGA National. He's not necessarily performed all that well here, but is pretty indifferent. Like he's made the cut half the times and finished kind of in the mid 20s to 30s. But given the form that he's in and that strength off the tee that he has, both with driving distance and accuracy, I think he's a really interesting option within that 8K range at 5% ownership, by far the lowest owned within that 8K range. So I think he's really interesting as a leverage play. So big ups on that. And then Sam Ryder's finished 21st or better last 3 appearances here, including 8th and 9th. And he's been playing really good golf. The approach play has been off the charts. So again, I think he's a really interesting option at a salary for me that's too cheap for where he should be, and pretty like middling ownership as well on Ryder there as well. So 7,100 and only 5% ownership, I think, is a steal. Ben Griffin, I think he's definitely an option. Also, the 4th last week was really good. He's played here a couple of times, 21st once and missed the cut the other time. But obviously he's in very good form and the approach play looks good, and he's a nice kind of all-round player. So like that option there for the audience. Fortunately, neither of my players got stolen. One I wouldn't expect to be stolen. The other was like maybe. So I'll start with my long shot. That is going to be Thriston Lawrence, the South African. Now, we obviously had an incredible series of events at the Mexico Open last week with the incident on the playoff hole and Brian Campbell ending up with his caddy toasting the tree and just sharing a drink with the tree that saved his tournament, which was absolutely incredible. But look, it was a South African is firmly in contention on the PGA Tour, and then backing that up was over in Kenya. As I said, the Kenya Open was obviously won by another South African as well. So it was a strong week for South Africans. Tristan Lawrence has shown that when he gets into contention, he sticks around. Like he constantly on the DP World Tour was finding himself in positions in the top 10 of the leaderboard, and then he would just stick there and really push for the victory. He never really faded, and I love that aspect about his game. He also finished 4th last year at the Open at Royal Troon, so he's never played PGA National, but I'm relying on those links with the Open that I've spoken about throughout this show. His performance there was pretty iconic. It looked for a second like he was actually going to take the victory off Xander at points at a huge number. So you can get him at 6,500 and next to no ownership. And no, he hasn't been in the best form to start the round, but I do think that this is a better course for him than he's played on so far this year. And hopefully he can turn it around at a spot that I think is pretty good for him. Following that up, there was 2 options I could have taken here. One would have been Jordan Spieth and rolling your dice on him. I'm going to take hazard a guess that this is his first time playing PGA National, and the only reason that he is playing this is because he's so out of form, and obviously he nearly had to withdraw last time we saw him because of the pain in the wrist that he admitted later because of the wrist surgery. He'd suffered a lot of pain in his wrist over that time. So I did consider him here just because it is Jordan Spieth, and if he is going to show some form, I think like on paper he's obviously won the Open and he played very well at Open Championships, and that's shown very good correlation to PGA National. So I think he's worth rolling the dice in certain circumstances. I'm just not going to take him here in this format. Instead, I'm going to go and take kind of one of the golf Twitter favorites at 7% ownership, and that is Michael Kim, who is playing great golf, 3 consecutive finishes of 13th or better. So he finished 2nd at the Phoenix Open, 13th at the Genesis Invitational, and then 13th at the Mexico Open. He's never really shown anything at this golf course, so I will give him that, but you are getting low ownership on him as a result of that, and the fact that he's in such good form, hopefully he can turn that around, because I think on paper he really actually does have a potential game that could suit PGA National. So happy to round up my lineup with Kim here.
I'm with you. I think Michael Kim's been getting overlooked. He's been playing really well. Michael Kim is someone who I think has some upside at 8,400. He was someone I will be considering this week as well. Audience, waiting on that last pick to get locked in. You have a couple nominations in. We're going to need that last pick finalized to round out your draft. And Kitayama it is. Listen, Kitayama was the highest priced golfer in the field last week. No, it was second highest after Akshay. Different field, obviously, but there is a big adjustment here. I think on paper, it makes a lot of sense. If he makes some putts this week, I think you can get a really good result from Kitayama. So I like that pick. I like the way the audience squad has rounded out here. With my last pick, I'm going to take a guy that I don't think we've mentioned much on this show. I feel like he's been kind of going under the radar. I'm going to take Bud Cauley. With the last pick, he's been sneakily putting together a really good, some really good form. Even just, he's only played in 2 tournaments in this calendar year, but he's giving you a 30th and a 21st. But if you look back toward the end of last year, he's really been trending with a lot of good results, not missing a lot of cuts. He's really solid off the tee. It's a mixed bag on the greens. It's hot with the putter. He can lose strokes with the putter. He finds a hot putter this week. I think he can get a really good result from Bud Cauley. I think he's safe and does possess a bit of upside. So I like Bud Cauley this week. I'm glad. I'm happy and pleased with the way my lineup's getting rounded out. That's a wrap for this draft. Let us know what team you think is going to win. As we do every week, we're going to crown a champion and do it again next week. Give us your votes on which team you want to see the most in Time for Win Daily. Before the week's over, we have our ownership article from Steven coming out. Make sure you know what the ownership looks like going into the week. You can get into Discord where we have outright plays. David will have his weather update so you can have an idea if anything changes, if there's an edge to be had, we'll let you know what it is. But before we get you out of here tonight, we also have our first round leader plays to go through. And David, we're going to start with you. Who are you looking at in the first round leader market this week?
Well, I knew at the end there you were either going to go Bud Cooley or the other name I thought you might consider was Kevin Roy, who is a Tampa Bay resident, and you took last week, and I thought it would be one of those two names. I think they're both excellent selections within that range. So a nice way to round out your lineup there. I've got 6 names for outrights, for first round leaders this week. First of which, these are all going off in the morning. I'll say that there's going to be a little bit of rain overnight on Wednesday and first thing in the early morning, so 3-4 in the morning on Thursday. So I do think those going off Thursday AM are going to get soft conditions as well as 0 wind, and then the wind is going to pick up a little bit throughout the day as well as that moisture coming out of the grass as well. So I think those in the morning are really going to get a good advantage when it comes to the first round leader this week. Starting off with a guy I really loved this week and got drafted on the show was Russell Henley. Give him at 36-1 to be first round leader. He has been in a great run of form when it comes to first rounds. His last 5 starts, he has finished 23rd or better after the first round, and he was first round leader just 2 starts ago. At a golf course he's found a lot of success on lately. Over the years, he has found a lot of success at PGA National. So I think he is a fine selection at 36-1, nearly double his win odds. Seb Striker at 40-1, again, drafted on the show, huge upside, ability to go and spike on any round, and obviously has great record at this particular golf course. I think my favorite first round leader is actually Denny McCarthy, who you can get at 50-1. He goes off on the very first group of the day at PGA National on Thursday, so he's got no concerns with the weather. He has finished first round leader twice in his last 4 starts, and has finished 3rd here previously and gets that optimal tee time. Obviously, we know that he can get extremely hot with the putter. He's one of the best putters in the world. Now, I think there's very generous odds on him for the first round leader at the moment at 50-1. Billy Ho, don't need to say anything more about him. I think I spoke about him extensively on the show. He's 60-1. I like him for first round leader. I did mention that this player would come up later in the show, Sam Ryder, 110-1 to be first round leader, also going off in that first group, and I do like his profile, particularly for this golf course. Then the Hail Mary, Tristan Loris, 175-1 to be your first round leader, going off in the morning. If he gets hot, he could be a real roughie to get a triple figure first round leader this week.
I love it. I think this is a fun week for first round leader. I think this is one where you can take a shot on a long shot. I think someone could come through. It's not the loaded field. I think somebody can come through and surprise you with a big payday. I got 5 to give out today for my first round leader card. Starting at the top, I'm going to give my highest odds first, and that's Daniel Berger at 35-1. Again, I know he likes this course. It's a good fit. He's playing well. I think 45-1 for someone who's one of the better golfers in the field is a really strong number. I like Johnny Vegas. He's a guy that we've seen historically be a first-round leader guy. He's in good form. He can get a great ball striker. He only needs to have a hot putter one day to be the first-round leader opposed to 4, which we know he can struggle with. But at 70-1 for Vegas, I like that number. Tom Hoagie at 90-1 in this field. I think he has a lot of talent for this field. Plenty of upside. At 90-1 just feels like too big of a number for what is really more of a watered-down JV-type field for Tom Hoagie. I am aligned with you, David, on Sam Ryder. We both have him on our card. I have him at 90-1 on DraftKings. But my last Hail Mary ticket at 120-1, I think it's a obviously a long shot, but it's one you can have some fun with. It's Henrik Norlander. Listen, he really crushed it on his approach shots last week. He gained 10 strokes on approach. He even gained strokes putting. If he has any positive strokes putting with as well as he's striking the ball right now, he could certainly come out and be a first-round leader at 120-1. That's some fun action to take. All right, that's a wrap for the Draftcast tonight. Follow along, smash the like button. Let us know who you think's going to win. Tune in again next week. We'll do it all over again. Good luck. And David, did I forget anything?
Yeah, I mean, look, thanks to the team audience joining in every week. Congrats on the big win last week. Really appreciate you guys, all your support and follows and everything that you do for the channel. All the likes go a long way as well, and all the shares on Twitter and everything. It just helps us to continue to, find the motivation to come here and put out good content for you guys and share our thoughts on the event. So we had a couple of questions early in the show. Ed wanted to know if we thought that Henley Lowry would be a common start. I do think, like, I've tried to build some lineups like that using DraftKings salary. It does get pretty tight. You're going to have to drop pretty low in the 6Ks in order to justify it. But I do think it's viable because I can see both those guys being top 5 quite easily by the end of the week. And then if you can combine that with the right kind of low end guys, as you said, Joel, it's not the weakest field that we're going to see all season, but it's not the strongest either. We're not in a signature event. So, the difference between those guys who are sort of like high 6K to the guys who are low 8K just isn't as big as we see at something like the Genesis Invitational or like we'll see next week at Arnold Palmer. So maybe it is the type of week to roll the dice and try and build your lineup kind of in that way. The other question that we had was what's preventing Carl Phillips from top 20 this week, David, which is funny coming from Andrew, because last week he asked me that question about Aldrich Potgieter. Back in December on radio, I said that Aldrich Potgieter, and I've spoken about him a number of times over the years, I said he was a name to add to your black book, and watch out because this kid's going to be serious. Well, nearly won the Farmers Insurance Open and then nearly won the Mexico Open. And, I didn't put my money where my mouth was on Potgieter at either of those two events, and had he gone out and won either of them, I would have been incredibly disappointed to have missed out on it. I thought it was perhaps a little bit too early in his career, but the guy has got tons of talent, and his driving distance is phenomenal. In terms of Carl Phillips, look, he's a very, very talented amateur. I do think that he is a little bit behind where Aldrich Potgieter is. In saying that, this is a relatively weak field. It's not a bet I'm personally going to be placing. I do want to see how he develops a little bit. Those might be famous last weeks, as they almost were with Aldrich Potgieter last week. And if it was not through the magic of nature and the tree saving Brian Campbell's golf ball from a guaranteed out of bounds, it could well have come back to bite me. So wish you all the best with your bets this week, and hope you make tons of money.
And of course, sports.